Nothing is ever normal when it comes to the Philadelphia 76ers, and the Quentin Grimes contract negotiations are no exception. With training camp underway and the regular season right there on the horizon, no resolution has still been reached between Grimes and the Philadelphia 76ers. The restricted free agent continues to punch back and value his worth, with the deadline looming and a decision needing to be made one way or another. I do want to dive into the latest of what is being said. While we do have some pretty significant updates, and for the first time in this entire sequence, it does feel like things are getting a little bit ugly, but I understand where both sides are coming from and do want to sort through the madness here. Now, the most notable part of this is, of course, we did have Media Day come and go. That we did get to hear Daryl Morey speak on it, and let's not forget that he mentioned directly that he believes this will be resolved within the next couple days. Well, Quentin Grimes' agent seemingly heard those words as well and was not too pleased with them. So he took a chance to go on his own little media tour here and give his quotes for their perception of the situation. So I'm going to sort through that, kind of find a middle ground here, and ultimately break down how I do think this is resolved. I do think there have been some changes in the situation since the last time that we spoke. As I've kind of mentioned throughout this entire offseason, we're still at the spot where the Sixers have the entirety of the leverage in the situation. And even with the Jared McCain injury, I don't think that's entirely shifted. But nonetheless, let's dive into things here. I do want to start out with this article with Philly Voice. I thought Adam Aronson of the Philly Voice did an awesome job with the interview, and you get a kind of a feelings of the behind the scenes here. So to kick things off, I do want to read that his article states, Ballman, which is Quentin Grimes' agent there, writes, Ballman and Sixers sources have both described a massive gap when it comes to how much money Grimes should be earning in a hypothetical multi-year deal. And the clock is very much ticking ahead of October 1st, when Grimes must decide whether or not to accept the one-year qualifying offer worth $8.7 million. That deal, which the Sixers had to issue to Grimes in order to make sure he was a restricted free agent and have the rights to match any offer sheet he signs with another team, would be considerably less rich than the kind of deal Grimes had hoped to ink in his first time in NBA free agency. However, it would give him an ultimate control. Taking the qualifying offer would give Grimes the right to veto any trade for the entire 25-26 season and the ability to become an unrestricted free agent next summer. Ballman confirmed to Philly Voice that he proposed extending the deadline for Grimes to pick up the qualifying offer to October 8th, giving the sides another week to find common ground, as The Athletic reported earlier this week. A Sixers source said on Friday that the team will decline that request, which sees it as one-sided. Another point of contention, did the Sixers make a 4-year, $39 million offer to Grimes on Monday? Ballman first told the Philadelphia Inquirer on Thursday afternoon that the team had presented the offer to Grimes, which the Sixers immediately refuted. At first, a semantics debate ensued about formal offers versus informal offers. A Sixers source claims that the team's number-centric discussions with Grimes have only resolved around potential ranges based on different contract lengths and structures. Ballman has continually affirmed to reporters that the $39 million offer was made, while the Sixers have strenuously denied it. Now, to get into this here, the first thing that I want to note is the deadline story. And the most latest update that we do have on it is the Sixers are not moving this. Now, the Sixers are viewing the deadline as an advantage on this part. That at this point in time, it is up to Quentin Grimes to make a decision. That what is set in stone is that $8.7 million qualifying offer. Now, I've been pretty open and still feel that that would not be ideal from the Sixers standpoint, that I think would be in the best interest of the organization to get him under contract for a long-term deal at this point. It is kind of a mystery for what Quentin Grimes actually is from an NBA perspective as a basketball player. You do have to put some stock in what he put on the floor last year, but the context of the situation is still relevant. That there were some lifeless basketball teams that did not equate to winning, that there were numbers that did not translate into actual team production there, but nonetheless, that was the most basketball freedom that he's seen through his career, and I have a hard time holding it against the guy who did put 40 points in the basket, who was scoring 21.7 points per game for this Sixers team and providing him the most efficient source of offense that they had seen all season. But the Sixers are clearly viewing that deadline as an advantage, which is why they do not want to remove it. Now, to continue on with this article here, it writes, Sixers sources have gotten increasingly adamant over the last 2 days. Not only did the team never make that $39 million offer, but it was never broached in any capacity, formal or informal, direct or indirect. Speaking to Philly Voice, Ballman gave a detailed account of a conversation he says took place between himself and Morey on Monday. Grimes' agent maintains that the discussions led to those figures being introduced. In Ballman's description, Morey told him to implement the exact qualifying offer figure of just over $8.7 million as a starting salary, go out 4 years with maximum annual raises of 8%, and then, quote, do the math. The math does add up to 4 years and about $39 million. There is no other conclusion, Brallman said, other than they wanted him to take the qualifying offer. That is not how the Sixers have characterized their outlook of the situation, though. They are not discussing the qualifying offer as some sort of worst-case scenario that is largely being perceived as publicly. They still assert that their preferred outcome in all of this is coming to terms with Grimes on a long-term pact, but have not expressed any hope that this is a realistic goal. Ballman places the blame for that on the team. Quote, "The ball is in their court," Ballman said. "The ball has been in their court all summer long, and they haven't attempted by any way to be serious." Now, the part that I'll interject and defend Daryl Morey a bit on here is I do think this is a case where neither sides are truly negotiating in good faith. And let's not forget that the offseason started with the reports of Quentin Grimes wanting $25 million annually. That is straight up crazy. That Quentin Grimes is not a $25 million basketball player. He just is not. Even if you want to talk yourself into those being completely legitimate the second half of the year, I think we got to be honest with ourselves. And the best case scenario for Quentin Grimes is a basketball player who I like, who I'm in favor with, who I want to be back on the Sixers team. But the best case scenario is probably a fourth or fifth starter on a contending basketball team. That is how I see things, and I think that is how Daryl Morey sees things if he does not view him slightly worse in those conversations. Let's not forget, this dude has been on 4 NBA teams in 4 seasons. I understand you can throw the context of these deals in my face here, that sure, you can point out that they were primarily financially motivated for why he has been passed around the league, but the bottom line is that still says something. If 3 teams already were not giving up this guy before he's out of his rookie deal, that is uncommon in the NBA, and there does have to be some sort of connection there, and I think the Sixers should be looking at this as a point of strength of we want you back. We value you as a basketball player, to which Grimes' camp seemingly does not care about whatsoever. Now, the deadline itself, and I did want to pull up this other report, is it has now become official from Jake Fisher, who says restricted free agent guard Quentin Grimes is not on the Sixers' team flight for preseason games in Abu Dhabi, sources said. Philadelphia has also declined the request from Grimes' agent David Ballman to push back the 10-1 deadline to accept his qualifying offer. And I've seen a couple comments about this, and to address this head on, it's not a surprise whatsoever that Grimes is not there. He's not under contract by the Sixers team currently. They do have his rights, meaning no team can go out and sign him directly from underneath them, but he's not contractually obligated to be a part of this team. We've seen from the Sixers right here in Philadelphia, with Ben Simmons being the most obvious example, as well as across all sports. We see contract holdouts all the time of guys who are physically under contract and trying to get more money out of it. Grimes is in a spot where he is not even that this is not him breaking his contract to any extent, and this is fully expected here. This is kind of a no change of the situation, and that October 1st deadline will be particularly interesting. Right around the corner, happening this week, and that's where a decision needs made. Now, the point that I do think I'm starting to sense from the Sixers is I do think they don't view the qualifying offer as the worst case scenario in the way that I talked about it. The way that I talk about it that way is I do think, for starters, you rub a guy the wrong way, and seemingly that damage is already done. And what I'm most prioritizing is what is the pathway to keeping this guy long-term if he is a fit in the organization here. That, to me, is getting him locked up under contract right now. But I do think Daryl Morey wants this to be a bit of a prove-it year for Quentin Grimes, that I need to see that this is sustainable, this is legitimate, that when you got the most basketball freedom that you've had in your career, you delivered on it, but this is not just a splash-in-the-pan situation. And the bigger storyline to keep in mind there is I think Morey's being incredibly proactive in not handcuffing themselves from a financial perspective beyond what is already the case. And to take a peek at this Sixers cap sheet there's a lot of money committed for the very far future here. We're talking about Joel Embiid under contract through the 28-29 season. Paul George, the same length there. VJ Edgecombe just on his rookie deal. Tyrese Maxey on his max contract. That's a lot of money invested in a team that we have no clue how good they are even going to be. Are you just throwing more at Quentin Grimes and hoping he's a part of it, hoping it fits out, hoping this is the right mix? I don't think Daryl Morey, this is a gamble that he wants to make at this point in time. So, and as far as that $9.8 million deal that keeps bringing, or $9.75 million deal that keeps being brought to the table here, the reason that they're landing on that number here, as I pull up this portion of things, is shout out to Keith Smith, who tweets out, without Quentin Grimes in the fold, the 76ers are $1.7 million under the tax, $9.8 million under the first apron, and $21.7 million under the second apron. Grimes on the $8.7 million qualifying offer or a new deal will put Philadelphia in the tax. The real question, are they okay with going over the first apron? And that is exactly where I think Morey is coming up with that $9.75 million annual number there. And I do believe he's trying to stay under this. This is a spot where Daryl Morey, for all the positives that he does have, I think his biggest flaw is probably not having the human feel for some of these negotiations. That there is weight in making sure you're taking care of your guys, that guys feel wanted with an organization. And I think that's an area where we've seen in several different cases of Daryl Morey falling short on. We'll see what the overall damage in this. It does feel for the first time to me that it's trending towards the qualifying offer being picked up. There's also been the discussions of potential balloon deal where the Sixers pay above that $8.7 million figure in exchange for him dropping what would be the no trade clause, and then they can kind of make that determination from here. Can they flip him for a guy that's better fit to this roster? Those are all questions that will be answered down the line, but I also kind of feel that this is a desperate play from Grimes' camp, that they've been trying every single angle to create any form of leverage. The bottom line is the situation is the situation, and the Sixers are not moving that deadline whatsoever. So October 1st is truly when we'll know whether or not Quentin Grimes elects to pick up that qualifying offer, whether this turns into a one-year bet on himself contract, or if common sense does ultimately shine a light and a decision is made. I do wish this was ultimately finished already, that this did not drag out through the entirety of the offseason, and I am critical of Daryl Morey for that, that even if this was your stance on things, I would have started having these conversations in June and July and trying to make things happen, trying to mend the fences. And again, I don't hold Grimes' camp blameless here, that I think coming from $25 million annually is absurd and something that, does come from not in the right headspace either. So we'll see what ultimately this does conclude, but it does feel like things got mighty messy, mighty quick with the Sixers and Grimes negotiation in a way that I simply did not expect to be the case. One way or another, he's going to be a member of the Sixers team. It's just the question of what is the dollar figure and what is the length, and we will have those questions answered this week. So give me your guys' final prediction for the Grimes contract. At this stage in the game, I am sort of bracing for him ending up on that qualifying offer. We will find out at the end of the day if that was the right call or not, but let me know where your guys' heads are at in the comments. We are back in full form right here on Sixers Digest, the season right around the corner, and make sure you guys are tapping in. So if you have not already, make sure you're hitting that subscribe button on the channel, drop a like on this video here. I'll be back. Talk with you next time. Peace.